Laura Phillips. Laurie Anderson is sometimes called the avant-garde goddess. She is an experimental musician, performance artist and inventor of instruments. One of the central themes of Laurie Anderson's production is the study of how technology affects human relationships and communication. Laurie Anderson was born on the 5th of June in 1947 in the little town of Glendale, Illinois, in the United States of America. After high school, she moved to New York, where she still lives. Anderson finished art history studies at Barnard College in 1969 and gave, the same year, her first performance artworks, Symphony Played with Car Horns. The following year, she drew an underground comic called Baloney Moccasins, published by George DiCaprio. In 1972, Anderson graduated as a sculptor at Columbia University, after which she worked as a teacher of art history in a few colleges in New York. She was also art critic for Art Forum magazine and illustrated children's books. One of Anderson's best-known performances during the 1970s were duets on ice, which she performed in New York and other cities around the world. Playing the violin while standing on blocks of ice with skates frozen into the blocks. The performance continued until the ice had melted. Laurie Anderson became known outside the art scene when her single, "Oh Superman," appeared on pop lists in 1981. The song is derived from the French composer Jules Massenet's opera El Cid, picked from the aria "O Sovereign." The song reached number 2 on the national pop charts in Britain.
Oh, Mom and Dad, Mom and Dad, Hi, I'm not home right now, but if you want to leave a message.
The real breakthrough album was Big Science, published by Warner Brothers in 1982. It had excerpts from Laurie Anderson's extensive performance called The United States 1-4. 1986, she also appears in a concert film directed by her, Home of the Brave. Laurie Anderson has published 6 books. Texts of her performances have been published in the anthology Extreme Exposure by Joe Bonney. Anderson is also the author of Encyclopedia Britannica's article on New York City. Her life partner is New York icon and musician, songwriter Lou Reed, with whom Anderson was married in 2008. The couple has been working with a number of recordings, beginning already in the 1990s. Anderson has also collaborated with many other musicians and artists. For example, Peter Gabriel, Jean-Michel Jarre, William S. Burroughs, Jean Dupuis, Arthur Lindsay, Bill Laswell, Ian Ritchie, Perry Hoberman, David Sylvian, Brian Eno, Philip Glass, Nona Hendrix, Bobby McFerrin, Ryuichi Sakamoto, Dave Stewart, Peter Gordon, Adrian Belew, and Hector Zazao. In 2003, Anderson made a performance artwork, The End of the Moon. She did it when she was inspired by being elected as the first National Aeronautics and Space Administration Artist in Residence. The work was followed by a series of performances, and she also wrote a piece for the Expo 2005 event. A year earlier, Anderson was part of a group that planned the opening ceremony for Athens Summer Olympics. In 2004, she also created a multimedia work for the Paris Ballet in collaboration with choreographer Patricia Brown and filmmaker Agnieszka Wojtowicz-Waslun. The work was called A Zlozonio, O Composite, and was widely praised. Anderson's recent publications include a re-release of her first album, Big Science, as well as drawings for a picture book called Nightlife. Her most recent studio album is called Homeland, and it was released in 2010. Homeland's material was already presented in May 2007 at Small Performances in New York. In February 2010, Anderson's Delusion Theatre show premiered at the Vancouver Olympic Games. The work was commissioned by the Vancouver Olympic Games Cultural Committee and the Barbican Centre. Anderson is a pioneer of electronic music, and she has invented several musical instruments, which she has used on recordings and live performances. Evidence of this can be found all the way back to 1977, when Anderson developed an instrument named the tape bow violin. In the instrument, the traditional horsehair has been replaced by a magnetic tape bow. One of the violin's parts is a magnetic tape sonotrode, which was attached to the instrument's bridge. Anderson has later developed and improved the violin. An upgraded version of the violin was used, among other things, in The Home of the Brave movie, in the Late Show section, where Anderson manipulated a phrase through the violin, which was a recording of an utterance by William S. Burroughs. Anderson has used during most of her career a variety of imaginative ways to manipulate her voice. She has used a variety of filters to give her voice a wide variety of shades and shapes. She has used these methods to create roles for her performances and recordings. Examples of this is the lowering of her voice by the use of sound technology. Anderson calls this audio drag. She also often uses a filter that changes her voice, giving it a deeper and more dominating character. Anderson refers to this as the voice of authority.
Over half of them will end up as women. 400 million living creatures, all knowing precisely the same thing. Carbon copies of each other in a kamikaze race against the clock.
You have seen a talking robot production.